Today, we're doing a deep dive into an event that truly rocked the nation, the assassination of political commentator Charlie Kirk. We're going to go way beyond the headlines to look at the massive security failures that allowed this to happen, and then explore the explosive political chaos that followed.
You know, this one sentence just says it all, doesn't it? This was so much more than a crime. It was a flashpoint. It was the moment that all the heated rhetoric, all the political anger, tragically spilled over into deadly violence, right there at Utah Valley University. So here's a quick look at how it all went down. The assassination happens on September 10th. Pretty quickly, the suspect surrenders and formal charges are filed. But that's really just the beginning of the story. The immediate aftermath was just a firestorm of political maneuvering and a whole lot of disinformation.
Okay, so let's start by breaking down the attack itself. Because when you look at the details, it becomes crystal clear this wasn't some random act of violence. This was a calculated, targeted political killing.
The target, Charlie Kirk. Well, he was a true lightning rod in American politics. As a key player in the MAGA movement, his really provocative takes on, well, pretty much everything made him a super high-value target. It just dramatically jacked up his personal threat profile. He was famous for pushing the envelope in any political debate.
The way this attack was carried out is just chilling. This was not a crime of passion. You've got a high-precision sniper rifle, a hidden vantage point 400 feet away. All of it just screams meticulous planning. It feels more like a state-level operation than some kind of spontaneous violence.
And that brings us to the really critical question. How on earth was this even possible? The answer, it turns out, is in a whole series of catastrophic security failures that basically rolled out the red carpet for an attack.
First, just think about the scene. We're talking about an outdoor rally with an estimated 3,000 people. A crowd that big is a huge security challenge on a good day. It needs careful planning and a ton of resources to manage safely. So, how many officers were there to protect those 3,000 people and a guy who was a known political lightning rod? Just 6. 6 campus police officers. The gap between the threat and the protection is it's shocking. And this chart really tells you the bigger story here. The university's police force was already stretched incredibly thin. They had 1 officer for every 1,400 students. That's almost 3 times worse than the national average. This wasn't just a bad day, it was a pre-existing vulnerability, and it speaks to this huge national challenge of securing what they call soft targets during these politically charged events.
You know, this wasn't about one mistake. It was a cascade, a total system failure. No drones watching the rooftops, no coordination with local police, not even basic stuff like metal detectors. Every single one of these failures added up, creating the perfect tactical opportunity for the attacker, leaving him with a clear, unwatched shot.
And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from Greg Schaefer, the guy who used to run Kirk's security, just hits the nail on the head. The attack was tragically foreseeable. It was a textbook case of minimal defense, meaning maximum threat, and the consequences were deadly. All right, so let's shift gears and look at the legal side of this. Prosecutors didn't just see this as a murder. They went for a really groundbreaking strategy, framing this whole thing as an act of political extremism, trying to set a new precedent for our times.
The suspect, 22-year-old Tyler James Robinson, actually turned himself in the very next day. And right away, the prosecution got a key piece of evidence about his motive from his own family, who mentioned he'd become more political lately. A pretty clear line to draw there.
So that's why he was charged with aggravated murder. In Utah, this is a capital felony, which means the death penalty is actually on the table. And the charge fits specifically because the killing was intentional and can be defined as a targeted political act.
When you look at all the charges together, it really paints a picture of a premeditated crime. They also tacked on felonies for obstruction of justice and witness tampering. That suggests Robinson didn't just plan the attack, he planned his getaway and a cover-up too.
And right here, this is basically the prosecution's mission statement. They weren't just going for a guilty verdict. They were trying to set a huge legal precedent. Their goal was to use this trial to define how our justice system is going to handle targeted political violence in this country.
Of course, the story didn't stay in the courtroom. The assassination was immediately grabbed by political actors who wanted to, well, weaponize the tragedy for their own agendas.
And the political response really came in 2 ways. First, there was the immediate reaction. Kirk gets a posthumous Medal of Freedom, and blame gets thrown at political opponents with 0 evidence. Then came the longer-term strategy, a campaign to literally legislate his legacy through taxpayer-funded memorials on college campuses.
And these weren't just suggestions. Lawmakers in states like Ohio and Florida tried to force every single public university to build plazas or rename roads for them. And to make sure they complied, they threatened to pull state funding or hit any school that refused with big fines. It was a clear power play, using money to force an ideological narrative.
And finally, as if all that wasn't enough, the assassination unleashed this chaotic, really dangerous information crisis online. It was fueled by everyone from domestic conspiracy theorists to foreign governments.
Yeah, this event basically created the perfect storm of disinformation. About 40% of the online noise was from domestic hoaxes, the false flag theories claiming the attack was staged. Another 35% was driven by international interference, and this is crucial. A full 25% turned into real-world reciprocal threats, which actually led to arrests.
And that foreign interference? It was completely deliberate. Reports showed how Russian-aligned media and bot networks just jumped on this tragedy. They started amplifying conspiracy theories, creating inflammatory content, but their goal wasn't to pick a side. It was to sow as much discord as possible, to tear down trust and to inspire even more violence.
All of this leaves us with a really deep and unsettling question. When political speech crosses the line and becomes a real physical threat, whose job is it to protect the stage? Is it the schools and venues that host these events, the speakers themselves, or is it some kind of shared responsibility that, as a country, we just haven't figured out yet? The search for that answer is still ongoing.